that watch us tonight.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, I felt that. Did you feel that?
He said it's not firm enough.
What are you talking about? It's not firm enough.
It's not. I didn't say it wasn't hard enough. We can fix the firmness, but
So
it's
not. Tonight's show is really about living your best life, a high quality life with chronic illness. And we have some special guests on tonight that we've been spending time with. 3 guests, Bruce and Angela and Todd. 2 of them are patients that are living a quality life with cancer using cannabis as a tool. And the third one, Todd, he's a caregiver and he's quite a character. He's got a great story to tell.
So we're going to share that all with you tonight. But first,
we're going to talk about poor Dale last weekend. I'm telling you. I was green nurse on the go with Sherry. And poor Dale was green nurse at home.
Green nurse.
And she was taking one for the team. She's actually doing her PhD right now in nursing. Dale, tell everyone a little bit about that.
So we've talked about this before. We're doing research with chronic pain, chronic illness, and depression. So it's quite time consuming, but it's okay. I'm almost finished.
And so I was able to attend the Reliable Bud event last week. It was the Maui Wowie Luau, and I didn't wear my coconuts, but I did wear a grass skirt, and I had a nice little flower in my hair, and we got to hang out all day long. I'm so grateful for Reliable Bud. We were the charity, again, the Green Nurse Group, and the Green Nurse Group, in case y'all don't know, we're a whole health consulting agency, and we educate to bridge the gap between what patients aren't getting from traditional medicine, using alternative therapies, including cannabis as a tool. So we work directly with patients, providing consultations.
One of the things that we talk about is what is health, and health is not always the absence of disease. And so we talk a lot about whole health and all of the other aspects that it takes to create a sense of wellness.
Yep.
So
basically, Green Nurse on the Go was at Reliable Bud. We had a great time. We interviewed all day long, all different types of vendors. We got to speak with patients. And Reliable Bud is just an amazing resource and reliable information on all of your cannabis needs, whether you're a patient, new to cannabis, and exploring it. They're just a really good, reliable source. They have educational materials. They have an application. And we have a really kind of a fun video that we want to show you about the Green Nurse on the Go video is Sherry and the troops. And I'll talk about that video in a minute after we put it on. So Reliable Bud video from this weekend, the Maui Wowie Luau. So Reliable Bud is one of our sponsors, and they donate a portion of their proceeds to the Green Nurse Group, our underserved patient population, and that includes veterans, hospice, cancer patients, children, just to name a few of the underserved. And so they're supporting us. And what was wonderful about that event is there were a lot of vendors that came to us and were able to give us gifts that we were able to gift to patients. And one of the vendors is actually here tonight, and he'll be one of our guests. But before we, forgot. I wanted to mention some of our sponsors that were in the video. So the Talking Dead, they are a group of characters, actually. They write a comic book, and their comic book is pretty much describing the difference between the pharmaceutical industry, which is the Walking Dead, and the Talking Dead, using cannabis as a tool for wellness. So it's just a very interesting way, a different concept, a different way to educate through humor and a comic book. And the Talking Dead also has donated a portion of their proceeds from their comic book to the Green Nurse Group underserved patient population. And one of the pictures that was in that slideshow, it was myself and Stan the Man. He does a lot of our videotaping and artwork. Sway from Positive Diff Holistics, and Ben and Jeff from the Talking Dead. So I just wanted to thank them very much. So we're going to get on with our show and get started. What are we going to talk about? The Buddha bath?
Are we going to start?
Oh, yeah, we're going to give these away. So some of the vendors that came to us were at the Reliable Bud. We have got Bootylicious Naturals, and they gave us a lot of bath bombs and oils and tinctures. And we're going to gift these tonight to our guests. And we have a cream here from, I can't have my glasses on. What is it?
Herb in Paradise.
Herb in Paradise. This is one of my favorites. It's a nice topical salve that goes on, and it smells delicious. And we just want to thank them as well. We're going to be giving this to another one of our guests. And but for now, we want to get started.
Let's introduce Bruce.
Bruce.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
So Bruce, we met a while ago at Revolutionary Clinics, and we got to know one another, and we've done some interviewing together.
Yes.
And your story is very compelling, and you're living with prostate cancer.
I am.
Which has metastasized.
It's metastasized. It's hormone-resistant metastasized prostate cancer. So I have a tumor in my spine, and I have one or two in my nether regions.
So tell us about, what is it like to live knowing that you have a metastasized cancer in your body?
Well, it's changed a lot since I was first diagnosed. And I had a tornado in my head, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm living with it. I'm having a great life. I am, oh, hello.
It's Miss Lucy. Kisses. Mwah.
Yeah, don't
She's
lick me now,
welcoming you.
please.
Come over here.
Okay, sweetie.
So that's a pretty general question, but
So what is it like when you,
When you got the
how did you
diagnosis.
find out? I mean, did you have symptoms? What was going on that you,
I had an infection. They were doing a blood draw. The doctor said, geez, you haven't had a PSA test in a long time. This was 5 years ago. Let's throw it on. And when it came back, the first thing he said was, you're going to get a biopsy. And
So-
that's when the tornado started in my head.
so what were you
And,
thinking?
I was scared. I was in denial. No, that's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah, how could that happen to me?
Yeah, and so I basically didn't do anything for a couple of months, and then I realized that the doctor I'd seen really it didn't strike me as adequate for the task. I went to Dana-Farber. I'm allowed to mention.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So I went to Dana-Farber, just walked in and said, can I have a second opinion? And they kept me alive. They later told me that it was the variety of prostate cancer that kills quickly, and they wouldn't have been surprised if it only lasted a year.
So oftentimes, let's talk about prostate cancer. It can be very slow growing, but on occasion, like in Bruce's instance, it was a very aggressive
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah.
So when they told you this, Now, was this a new tornado that went on in your head? What was that like for you, and how did they intend to treat it? What was the treatment?
Dana-Farber threw a whole team of people at me, and it was very reassuring. It was
So you had
very
your
reassuring.
faith in the
and I saw a
doctors.
counselor at Dana-Farber to help with the tornado, an anti-tornado counselor. And but they did radiation. They did what's called a basically it equivalates to castration. They chop
Like a
off the
chemical,
stuff, the testosterone supply, and that starves the cancer cells and makes them weaker, and then your immune system can go after them. That worked. It took 2 years, and then I was
Were there side effects to that?
horrible side effects. I was exhausted. I was bitchy. I had hot. Can I say bitchy?
You can say it.
I had hot flashes, and none of my older female friends would give me any sympathy about it.
That's why you were bitchy.
And but I managed to keep a part-time job through it, and after a couple of years my numbers were 0. I wanted to travel, and
Now, when you say, I just want to interrupt, just so people can understand. When you say your numbers were 0,
yeah, they
what does that
measure
mean?
PSA as a marker of your tumor growth, and there's a rough correlation. If your PSA doubles, your tumor probably doubled, and so one of the things that happened was my PSA went from 29, I think was the highest it was, down to 0 over a 1.5-year period, and then stayed at 0. So that's saying I'm essentially cancer-free. The problem is there's tiny little cells that they can't test for that wander around. If they didn't all die, and they wandered in my body. So it came back. And then it came back after I had come back here and broke my back and was in a rehab for 4 months, relearning how to walk. So it was that year when it came back was a rough year.
Yeah. And is that? And when did you start exploring cannabis? What time in this frame that we're talking
I
about?
can't tell you the date or time, but it was roughly somewhere around 1968. Yes, I am that
What
old.
about that?
But in terms of the medical side,
Yeah.
I had a friend in California who gave me some cream for my arthritis, and I went, wow, that's great. Within it was a CBD lotion, and it was good. It worked. So I started looking around, like, where else can I get more of this? So I learned a little tiny bit about CBD for pain relief. That's it. So I bought some in Colorado as I was traveling, came back to Massachusetts, got run off the road, crashed, totaled my RV, wound up with a broken back in a rehab for 4 months, paralyzed from the waist down at the beginning.
Oh.
So after I was on opioids 4 times a day, and after a month, they had actually literally ran out that night of the opioid. The healthcare facility ran out of the medicine that I really needed. Called my friend. I was in a panic. Called my friend and said, bring me the little yellow bottle from the wreckage of the RV. Snuck it in. I drank it. It was a better pain reliever than the opioids.
And what was it?
It was a CBD drink that I bought at a dispensary in Colorado as I was passing through. And I'm sure it had THC in it because I had taken 1 bottle earlier in the trip, and I noticed that I got high. So it was some combination. But I didn't keep the label. I have no idea how much was in it. I didn't.
But it worked. You knew
It
you had
worked.
relief.
At that point, if I could have gotten it in the dispensary, I would have done anything, but I didn't even know how.
Right.
So I went out. As soon as I got out of there, I got my medical card, and I started educating myself because I thought, I have to know more about this. So at this point, informally, I consider myself a medical marijuana educator.
So what happened when you brought this back to your doctors at Dana-Farber? How were they receptive to an additional treatment?
Very,
That's wonderful.
very. And because I was preparing to go into some drug studies, I needed to be totally upfront with everything I was doing, and they were fine with it. And then, should I tell the story about?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Should I talk about the PSA going down?
Yeah.
Yes.
But before that, I want to talk about drug studies in case anybody doesn't know. If you're going into a study and they're using medications as their control and they won't allow most patients to use other drugs, including cannabis. And if they find them that they do have those on board, oftentimes they'll kick them out of the study, so they don't have the opportunity to try that, that new trial. So Dana-Farber has a different policy apparently.
Dana-Farber was fine with it, and
It's probably going to make the study work better, right? If you
Right.
think about it.
Yeah.
that's my hope. That's my hope. That was my hope when we
Improve the
started
efficacy
working
of the study
together in
drug.
January.
Yeah.
And so they were testing me multiple times. So I actually wound up with scans and a PSA test 3 weeks apart. My PSA went from 8 to 3 in a 3-week period. That does not happen.
Okay, what were you doing in the 3-week period?
Medical marijuana,
Just cannabis and
No.
no
cannabis,
trial drugs.
and THC.
And
No,
that's it.
no medical, no treatment from Dana-Farber. I was in between treatments.
So in between treatments, 3 weeks, you did cannabis oil, and your PSA went from
8 to 3.
8, 5-point drop. That's very significant.
Yeah. If it had dropped at all or even stayed level, that would have been significant. So the oncologist and his nurse practitioner were cracking up when we're all talking about these numbers. And they said, look, we can't really talk about it, but we like the numbers. Keep doing what you're doing. And they
Right.
wrote it up. It's on my medical papers, which cracks me up.
I know.
And they're fine with it. And the study I'm going into is fine with it. And frankly, I wouldn't go into the study if they said it wasn't. I mean, it's become that important to me because of the research I've done. I literally have spent many hours a day, every day, because I have the time, researching and educating myself. And, you know, I spend more time reading National Institute of Health research than I do fiction.
Right.
It's
fascinating.
it's fascinating.
And the more you learn, or the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah.
And
New
then don't-
research every day. Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing. And the part that's even more important is the more you learn, the more you're responsible for. Right?
And the
So
more I can tell other people.
Exactly.
You know, with a little bit of credibility, because I've literally been in a master's degree program for 2 years. I mean,
Studying
Yeah.
and learning and
So
applying.
what was the most fascinating thing you learned in all the studying?
that there's a lot of research that says it has a decent shot at killing cancer. Lots of different kinds of cancer, not just the one I'm stuck with for the moment.
Yeah.
And that's beyond phenomenal.
Now, do you feel, because I've read a lot of the research also, where using it, and I have a lot of patients, we have a lot of patients with cancer that are using it, and some people are using it to treat, and some people are using to mitigate the side effects of the chemotherapy, but some of the research suggests that combining it with the chemotherapy helps with apoptosis, which is the cell death.
Yeah, I've
So
read that.
how do you feel, having gone through this and using both treatments, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad to read the research, but it's really too early for me to have a big conclusion yet. What I can say is that my disease burden is low compared to what it could be, because PSA can go into the hundreds, and mine is 20 last I looked.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see next month what my PSA is, because I've been doing my homework,
Yes.
But
you know.
the other thing that we talked about was you're not just using cannabis. You've changed your life to a much healthier
Oh my God, yeah.
lifestyle. So tell us about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
people need to know that you're doing everything else, including not just the cannabis.
When I came out of the tornado, I realized I had two paths to go. I could be a cancer patient, and that could become my lifestyle, and I could, you know, learn to wear the gypsy cap that people wear and all that. Or I could be responsible for my share of solving the problem. So how can I do that? I can do it through, number one, educating myself and acting. You know, I eat better. I've lost a lot of weight deliberately. I'm within 12 pounds of my goal that I started 8 years ago. I use humor constantly, both to change my brain chemistry
Yes.
and to create a heart-to-heart connection with whoever I'm talking to. I meditate I visualize. I don't think of the cancer as my enemy.
Yeah, you're living.
It's not my enemy. It's just an unwelcome guest.
Yeah, so if you're gonna
Get the
there
hell
it is.
out.
Exactly. If you're gonna be hanging around, let me still enjoy my life, but let me, use the medicine to help.
I've
heal
had no
the cells.
symptoms of illness from the cancer. So frankly, if it wanted to just stick around and not bother me, I got another 20 years. That's fine. We can coexist. But cancer doesn't work that way. It's very selfish.
So it sounds to me like your cannabis in cancer too, it has enriched your life in many ways as a side effect, right?
Tremendously.
Because it's had you change so many things for the better.
And your quality of life is better.
My quality of life is I have no complaints.
And how do you feel between now and before cancer, before you changed all these things in your life?
How do I feel?
Do you feel
about
better about life, your outlook, the way that you live your life? How is it different than it was before?
I'm acting as much as possible to be in charge of who I am and how I be out there. I don't want to act out of fear. I don't want to make my decisions out of fear. So when I feel fear, as often as I possibly can, I try to pause, think about it, and maybe go right at it, because my scary stories in my head, we all make up scary stories.
Yes, we do.
They're not as bad as you think they are.
If you share them with someone, sometimes they're funny.
And you share with them. So I do that, and I do that all the time, all day long. I tell jokes, I tell stories, I try to engage with people in a way that is uplifting. The last thing I'm going to do is moan and groan unless there's a funny story at the end of it, because I was a whiner and a complainer at many points in my life. Ask my first wife. You don't have to live like that. There's a real downside. And now we can see how changing your thinking and using humor can change your brain chemistry and affect your health in a positive way.
Well,
it's not even theory anymore.
No.
We can watch on MRIs.
Watch
we
it,
can
yeah.
watch the
We
chemistry.
were just
Well, we
talking
just-
about
yes.
this the other day.
Yeah.
Laughing upregulates your endocannabinoid system.
Faking a laughter up
Yeah, yeah.
faking it. Yeah.
Now's the time.
Oh gosh, you ready? Should I do it? Mom, I'm really sorry.
That was me.
This is
I'm really
this is
sorry.
how
I
we
had to do it.
This is how we laugh.
So humor is really
Humor is
important.
important.
Poor Dale, I hope
And
you
it's
can
also-
talk. And Mom, I'm really sorry, but you know what? That was, I had to do it.
That was appropriate.
It was appropriate.
It was appropriate.
Because you know what? If you keep taking, life is serious enough.
Yeah.
And when I can
Yeah.
sit back and chill and really look at things from a
Yeah.
different perspective and see that I'm just a tiny, tiny grain of sand, I'm a speck, I'm a piece of dust, right? And see perspective.
Sometimes.
As a speck, I'm a really important speck to me, but
I'm
not so much for the grains down the beach.
But sometimes the worst things, what may seem like the worst thing ever, like a cancer diagnosis, can turn into, this is there's always that silver lining.
Yeah.
I
It
never
sounds
would
like
have
you
gone
took
down this
advantage of
path
that.
without it.
Yeah.
I never
And you're
would
living your best life now.
have. I'm having a pretty good life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And that's the
I've had a
part
pretty
that's
good
just so fascinating, and we want to get across to people is that, having a chronic illness does not mean, or even a devastating diagnosis, doesn't mean that you should stop living
Yep.
at all. Because there is another way, and it's the bio, psycho, social, spiritual aspects of healing. Cannabis is one of the tools.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a patient about this too, about the perception and how almost when you start to use cannabis, it's almost as if another nugget in your brain, that's what she said, gets shined
the
off.
nugget in your brain.
She goes, I feel like there was like a nugget in my brain that was, shined off so I could see things in a different way. her perception on a grander scale of what was going on, and being able to see the silver lining, or to see the good, or to focus on the positive instead of the glass being half empty or half full. It's you're grateful to have the glass, right?
Right.
I got several glasses.
Yeah, so
And you're the epitome of that. You epitomize that, living your best life and taking control.
I'm not perfect. Please don't put me on a pedestal, because if I fall off the pedestal, I can't get back up. I still have a broken back.
yeah. Well, Bruce, I'm so grateful. It's been so wonderful working with you and speaking with you. And Bruce has done a couple of interviews with us. He's going to be part of our documentary, Green Nurse on the Go. And this is just really wonderful. And we have a video coming up because we're going to get our next guest on. The video is really very interesting video, and it shows how cannabis kills cancer. It's taken, and I think we've got that right about ready. Ready? Yeah, we're ready. And so Bruce, while they're getting the video loaded up, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Okay,
It's
you're a
been
power
real pleasure.
of
It's been a
example.
real pleasure.
Right, seriously, and keep shining your light, keep educating, keep learning, and Bruce, I'm grateful. And so as soon as that video is ready, you can pop it right up.
Intriguing answers started appearing in the early 90s when researchers pinpointed receptors in the brain and the body that bind with the cannabinoids. Receptors can be described as locks on the surface of a cell, and when the correct key binds with the correct lock or receptor, it opens the door and delivers messages. Sometimes the message is that the body is feeling pain. Other times the message may be that there's an invader and the immune system must attack.
Scientists located two receptors, cannabinoid receptors, one called the CB1 receptor, mainly in the brain, and the other is the CB2 receptor, which is mainly in cells of the immune system.
The CB1 receptors are extremely abundant in the brain, but they're also found all over the body in the major organs, the heart, the liver, kidneys, and pancreas. Because the CB2 receptor can act like a target for the cannabinoids. Once they bind with the receptor, they can tell the cancer cell to die.
So basically telling the cells basically to commit suicide, and that's what they do. And we demonstrated that that would be the mechanism by which the cannabinoids can kill the cancer, and therefore it can be used effectively as an anti-cancer agent.
Dr. Nagar-Katti and his researchers were able to eradicate almost 100% of the cancer in test tubes. But they were skeptical they would see similar results when they moved on to tumors in mice.
To our surprise, we found that almost 25 to 30% of the mice completely rejected the tumor. They were completely cured. And in addition, we found that the remaining mice also, there was a significant reduction in the volume or the size of the tumors as well.
The lab results have been so promising that Dr. Nagar-Katti is beginning clinical trials with leukemia patients.
People.
Hey everybody, we're back.
We're back. And we're back here with Angela.
Yep, Angela.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, Angela. I met
Thrilled
Angela
to be here.
at Revolutionary Clinics. It was a Green Nurse Group Day.
Yes,
Right?
my first time. I never heard of green nurses until that night, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, meeting you guys that night, because I've learned so much from you already.
Really.
I don't want
my
to get
God.
emotional.
Oh, honey, this is so good. Listen, I mean, we're on a journey,
Yeah, and
right?
it's been a great journey.
Isn't it? Oh, you're gonna
Since
make
I
me
met you.
cry.
We need some tissues over here.
No, I'm really so thrilled that, because this has been going on 3 years since my diagnosis of amyloidosis. And
So for people that don't know, what is amyloidosis? Because it's not, you don't hear about it that
right,
often.
it's supposed to be a rare cancer. It's the cells are made in your bone marrow, and obviously go into your blood, and you know, you lose the protein. It's right now it's in my kidneys, but it can travel to all my organs. And luckily, so far, I think it's still just in my kidneys. My kidneys are still functioning. As of a week ago, I had more labs done, and to me, everything looked pretty good.
And
I do lose a lot of protein.
When did you get diagnosed, and how did you know that? Was something
What were your
wrong?
symptoms?
What was
I
going on?
was at work one day, and it was actually December 31st, and I just started having trouble with breathing. And obviously it wasn't like really bad, but I kept using an inhaler I had, and it just didn't seem to do the trick. So I thought, oh, I need something stronger. So I called my doctor, and I only used an inhaler maybe 3 times a year, you know, if I was like walking through cigarette smoke or something. And I called my doctor and I said, you know, I'm having trouble breathing. She said, Angela, get to the hospital, go to the ER. And so I said, well, it's not going to be that bad. She said, please go to the ER. She yells at me because she knows how I am. So I went to the ER, and I told them, you know, I'm having trouble breathing. I have a little pain in my back, like my upper back. And so they right away thought I had pneumonia, because then I started coughing out of nowhere while I was in the ER. I started developing,
Oh my
I
God.
started
She goes to the
developing a
emergency room and gets sicker.
fever. Yeah. And so they said, you know, we think you have pneumonia. So they took me to get a chest x-ray. It was negative. So they did some labs, and they said, you have, I wanted to leave because my son was home, and I wanted to go home. And so the doctor, the staff came in and said, stay right here. He said, I'm going to get your doctor. So she came in, and she said, you're not going anywhere. She said, your D-dimer test is, I think it was 850. And I said, what's a D-dimer test? She said, it means that you probably have a pulmonary embolism. So she said, we need to do a CAT scan. And so I'm getting wheeled down. This was a minute before midnight. I still remember because it was New Year's Eve. And I'm getting wheeled in to get a CAT scan, and
Happy New Year.
I remember yelling to them, Happy New Year!
Oh my God.
And you know, I was feeling
What was
okay,
going
but
through
I was
your mind? What was going
I
through
was
your head
obviously
at this point?
nervous.
And you were
like,
alone.
I was alone, yeah. And I said to them, I've never had a blood clot. My ex-husband had a blood clot in his lung. I actually saved his life because I insisted they do tests on him. And so anyway, they did the CAT scan, and they were having problems with the CAT scan machine.
Oh my God.
But they said, oh no, it went through. So it was inconclusive. So they sent me home. I went home, and I just got more and more sick. Make a long story short, I was very sick for about a month. I lost 10 pounds in the first week.
Wow.
I knew something. I hardly ever got sick.
What were your symptoms? Like, what were you feeling?
I was very weak. I could barely walk to the bathroom. I was vomiting. The next night, I ended up having an ambulance take me back to another ER, the Leahy. I was at Winchester first, and they gave me pills to take for the horrible cough that I was developing. And they said, oh, you probably just have a virus. And I knew it wasn't a virus. I knew I was really
body.
sick.
Yeah.
I very rarely even got a cold. And so they sent me home too. And I was in bed. I could barely eat anything. And
How long did it take for you to get the diagnosis?
it took after
Like, what did they do? Like, so so
Well-
obviously you didn't get your diagnoses, and you kept going
Right.
home, and you kept going back.
it took a good 2 months before they could diagnose me. They were doing tests. I ended up getting two. I laughed at them the first time. They said, you need a fat pad biopsy. And I said, what's that?
A
And
fat
she said,
pad biopsy?
yes, and that's
Do a little
exactly how it's
liposuction while you're
spelled.
there.
Yes, so that's
Yeah, take it.
exactly
You
what
can
I
have the whole
said.
thing. Take it all.
So she said, well, we just take a couple of little, some of your fat cells from your belly. And I said, oh, can you take it all?
Yes.
So I was trying to make light of it because I was
No,
scared. I
right.
knew I was really sick, never thinking, it was anything this serious. And so they did that, and it wasn't showing what they wanted to see. I guess there's cells in your fat, and it has certain cells like that would show like lymphoma or something like
right.
that. So after that, they had me go to have I think I had a bone marrow biopsy, which I was trying to avoid at all costs, because that's what they wanted to do first. And my brothers had them, and I knew it was a lot of pain. And I said, no, I don't want a bone marrow biopsy. And they said, well, we didn't get the cells we needed from the fat pad biopsy. We need to do a bone marrow biopsy. It was horrendous, but I had it done. And they said, we think we know what you have, but you also need a kidney biopsy, because we have to know if it's in your kidneys. I don't know if they actually used the word amyloidosis at the time, but they wanted to know what kind it was so that they knew how to treat it. So I had a kidney biopsy, which wasn't fun. I was awake for it,
Oh my
but
God.
I had to stay in the hospital, lay on my back, for 24 hours, and that's when they said, yeah, you have AL amyloidosis, and it's in your kidneys. We know that for sure. It could be in other organs. So I said, how do you treat that? And of course they said chemo and bone marrow transplant. And so I met, BMC, Boston Medical Center, has a clinic just for this illness. And people come there all the time from all over the world to get treated. And so we met, my brother came with me, and we met with all these different doctors, oncologists, nephrologists, and everybody. They all want a piece of you. And so when they started talking about the chemo, and at the time, I didn't know I had a choice. I was obviously terrified, like going through chemo, and a friend of mine has been fighting cancer for many years, and she's been through chemo many times. And when she described what the chemo was going to do, she said, we'll pack your mouth full of ice for 15 minutes before the chemo and 15 minutes after the chemo. And I just thought, and she said, most patients hate that part worse than the chemo itself. And so I was not happy. I was terrified and thinking, I'm looking at my brother in the room, and I thought, oh my God, this isn't really happening. I just thought, so, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Just brings back memories.
I know.
So I was like, every day, I made an appointment to go and have the port put in my chest first.
Portacap, so people know it's a centrally implanted line so that you can give high doses of chemotherapy and medication without damaging vessels.
Right. So my brother John and his partner Nick live in Boston, and like 5 minutes from Boston Medical Center. And they said, you'll have to come back and forth every single day to take more blood and to test my blood and through the port. And so before I went to my brother's, I think I made the decision, and I must have changed my mind at least 50 times over that period of time about doing chemo, not doing chemo. So I went online and I started looking, and I first got the idea from the site, The Truth About Cancer with Ty Bollinger. And they had videos, they had people saying, oh yeah, we cured ourselves with, just organic food, which is very important because I was a big junk food eater.
Oh, we want to know all
Yes.
about that.
Oh, lots of sweets. and I still have that sugar addiction, but I'm much
But you're
better
much
than.
better. We talked about
Yes.
that. Give yourself credit.
Yeah,
You're doing good.
I did better.
A
So
little bite of ice cream here and there. is all
yeah,
right.
those funny bones. I just they're really good.
She does not work for the sugar industry.
So
So you made the decision.
I made the decision. In the meantime, they kept calling me and saying, you know, you need to come in, you need to come in. And I said, I need to think about this some more.
So they were pushing you.
They were, oh yeah,
And
they
how many
still
years-
push me.
How many years ago was this?
This was going on 3 years. January 1st will
be 3 years this year.
right.
Okay. And you have not had chemotherapy?
No,
Okay, so
no
what did
bone
you
marrow
decide?
transplant.
Nothing?
I decided nothing. I went to church one day. I talked to my priest, and I explained. I said, "Look, you know, I have this really scary illness," and I said, "And they want me to do chemo, and I'm just really afraid to do it." I said, "I don't know if there's another way." I said, "I've been looking at things online," and he looked at me and he said, "Angela, chemo is a big business." That's my priest.
Chemo's a big
And I didn't know that at the time,
Yeah.
but I've learned a lot since then. And so I think that sort of helped me make the decision to not do it.
The word of God.
Yes.
Right?
So I went and stayed with my brother and Nick, and I stayed with them for the month. They were going to teach me how to take care of myself. And boy, did they ever change the way I ate and lived.
Boot camp?
One
Was
of them,
it
yeah.
boot camp?
One of them, Nick is a chef, and they're very into health. And so Nick was cooking all this delicious organic food for me
Wow.
for the first couple of weeks. And then he said, okay, now and making me lots of green juices and things. And he said, now you're going to start learning to cook for yourself. And I hate to cook. I really do. That's why I was a junk food eater.
Me too.
But I learned, I mean, he taught me, you know, how to even cut vegetables with a knife and things. I learned a lot from them. I really credit them for getting me on this path back to health.
Yep. Nutrition is so important.
Very important.
It's like one of the most important things that we can do.
And I forgot to tell you, I started to see a naturopathic doctor because I met this woman in a health food store. And I was looking for a probiotic, another kind of probiotic. And I said to the woman, I said, I'm going to be starting chemo soon. I said, so I want to know what kind of probiotic I should be taking. So she said, oh, you have to talk to her. Her name just escapes me now, but it was the owner of the store. And she came over, we started talking, and she said, my daughter has breast cancer. Her daughter was 28 years old.
Wow.
She said, and she just went through chemo, she said, and the drugs that they were giving her for the nausea and everything weren't helping. So I brought her to this doctor in Lexington. He's a naturopathic doctor. She said, and he was great. You know, he treated her and gave her things that helped her with the nausea, not the cancer, but she was going through chemo. So I started to see him, and he prescribed all these supplements, very expensive. I went through a lot
tell
of
us how
money.
many, we talked about this earlier, how many supplements a day were you taking?
I was taking about 120 a day.
120 supplements a day?
Yes,
Oh,
3
my.
times a day, split up. It was
Right.
certain things at certain times, all these Chinese herbs, and mix it with water, and they were horrible tasting. When I tell you, I would feel nauseous just from drinking them, taking all these. People couldn't believe, like, when they'd see me take my packet out for the afternoon, like, what is that?
But it felt better, probably, than.
So when I
right?
went back,
Energetically felt better to take that than to go get chemo.
yes, and that's what my daughter-in-law kept, you know, pushing into me. It's better than chemo. I said, yes, it is. So I stood on those for a good year and a half. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was getting tired. I was going broke. I was going through all my savings, paying for, you know, the visits and
It wasn't sustainable.
no.
Yeah.
So how did cannabis come into the
So
picture?
in the meantime, I had read things online about cannabis, and I had asked about them, but I didn't really know much about it. And I figured, well, I'm doing better, you know, on the supplements, but I just couldn't take them anymore. So then I really got serious about I have to do something, not just nothing, and go back to the funny bones and stuff like that. So I went online and I looked at a depository to go to,
With the dispensary.
dispensary, sorry. I know the word I was thinking of, but I'm glad I didn't say that one, yes.
So you looked up and you found Revolutionary Clinics.
I went to the one in Cambridge and
Right.
I asked about the Rick Simpson oil, and they didn't have it. So she sold me, you know, a little bottle of some kind of tincture, and I thought, no, it has to be the
Because you
Rick
did some
Simpson
studying
oil.
and you learned
Right.
that Rick Simpson oil has been used to treat cancer.
Yep. And
Right.
so I went to a lot of places and bought different things. And one, I did get sort of something like the THC, the Rick Simpson oil.
Yep.
But I just wanted to get really serious about this and,
Yeah.
you know, really take what I needed to take because I knew how sick I was because
Right.
my tests kept coming back not
Yep.
good.
So what do you do now? Like what is your health regimen consist of now?
Okay, I take the Rick Simpson oil
And how do you take that?
at night.
Yep.
I take it. It's comes in a little syringe, and
Just Rick Simpson oil, for anybody that doesn't know, is a full extract cannabis oil.
It's extracted.
ver-
Yep,
yeah.
it's basically it's very, very potent, very, very high strength. And what they do is they extract in an alcohol extraction and cook off all of the alcohol until you get left with the thick, thick grease, and it generally has a very, very high THC content. And the THC has been shown, you know, that we talk about as apoptosis. The
Right.
THC gets into the cell, changes the mitochondria, and induces cell death.
so you know, I remember them saying start off with a tiny dot, and I thought to myself, how is that going to help me? I was like a dot of this oil, and boy, I'm glad I did because I felt even that the dot. I mean,
Right.
I took that for about a week, a dot size, and then he said, you know, increase to, you know, the size of a grain of rice.
Right,
And
exactly.
so that's about what I've been taking. Now, it obviously it makes me, you know, like really want to sleep. It makes me, you know, loopy.
But it's managing your symptoms.
yes.
And and right now, basically, you're living with a chronic illness.
Yeah.
But you're living your life a quality of life.
Right.
And you
My
feel-
doctors told me that I would be dead a year ago December if I didn't do chemo and bone marrow transplant.
And here you are
here you
today.
Here I am.
Looking as healthy as ever.
Yes, and
And-
I feel fine.
You feel fine.
I just had tests done about a week ago, and they're not perfect, but they're really good.
So have they improved since the diagnosis?
Yes, yes,
That's
oh
great.
yes. Well, my protein that I'm losing is increased, which means, you know, my kidneys are still
Right.
affected, but my kidneys are functioning, which is a great thing, you know, because then I'd have a problem.
Well, there's a man that's here. His name is Todd Hodges. He's going to come on in just a minute. And he's been making medicine. He's been making the full extract cannabis oil. And he's actually gifted you and Bruce, the oil that you've been taking.
Yes.
And he's going to be
So grateful.
Yeah, and you guys are all going to connect. We're going to have a little video later to show them all meeting for the first time, which is going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
Patient and caregiver. But we're going to bring him on in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, we have a video with Revolutionary Clinics that we want to show you. Revolutionary Clinics is one of our sponsors. They're wonderful, 67 Broadway in Somerville, Massachusetts. They have Green Nurse Group Days where we go in and we educate. And we bring learning, we bring connection. We teach the biopsychosocial, spiritual aspects of healing using cannabis as a tool. We help guide patients. So we have John from Revolutionary Clinics, who is a man that I hooked up with one of the Green Nurse Group Days, and he talks about why he likes Revolutionary Clinics. Hey everybody, this is Sherry from Green Nurse Group, Green Nurse Radio and Cannabis Radio Network. And I'm here at Revolutionary Clinics with John. And John came into the dispensary and he's going to share a little bit about why he comes to Revolutionary Clinics and how cannabis has improved the quality of his life. First, John, introduce yourself and let everyone know why you like to come to Revolutionary Clinics.
My name is John Manise. I'm 52 years old. I love to come to Revolutionary Clinics basically because of the people that work here. It's really good staff. They have really good flower. They have really good product, basically. And just the staff and the whole feeling, the ambience of the place is just, it's me, you know, so I like it.
Does it feel like home?
It does. Actually, it does. Everybody knows my name. They put a magazine aside for me, as you can see, and I bring them desserts, and, you know, we have a great relationship.
That's so wonderful. So tell me, John, what brought you to start using cannabis, or when did your cannabis journey begin?
I actually, kind of embarrassing, I started when I was 9 smoking cannabis. I did it, of course, to get high and defy my parents, of course, and defy society. But after I was about 18 or 19 and injured my back, I found that there was other uses for it. And that's when the light kind of went on in the head and said, Jesus, this could be used for pain as well, and different things like bad backs and, you know, just to get up in the morning and move, you know.
Do you care to share why you use cannabis and how you use it?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, at this point, I do a lot of freezer work. I'm a director of quality in a bakery, so I do a lot of inspections in the manufacturing field. So I'm out in the freezer a lot. So your freezer tends to tighten up your muscles. Really, it's almost, I liken it to like an elastic band, and it feels like it's going to break any second. And I find that the only way to get that relief is by smoking cannabis. That's how I've tried different medications and tried different ointments. Massage therapy is also in combination with the cannabis as well. So it's not just cannabis. It's
So
also
you're incorporating other alternative holistic therapies to manage your symptoms.
Definitely. I'm also doing, like I say, massage therapy as well. And yeah, and in combination with both. You know, it cures the insomnia, it cures the body pain. You know, it keeps me sane, basically. Makes me feel normal. That's what I used to tell people. It makes me feel normal.
Makes you feel good so you can enjoy your life. So what are the types of things that you're able to do now that you weren't able to do before using cannabis as a medicine?
Well, it's more. I have more freedom as far as physically to do more things. I'm not running marathons, and I'm not playing basketball and things like that. But I have the ability now to go for a walk for 2 or 3 miles and not have to worry about, you know, the next day getting up so sore that you can't do anything. You know what I mean? And I was always pretty active as a youngster. I was very involved in the drum and bugle corps, and so it was a lot of physical activity, you know. And I try to carry that on now.
That's so wonderful. And you're happy.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm in a good place right now. Good people, nice area, good job, and
cannabis has improved the quality of your life.
it certainly has.
And John, you know what? I am so grateful that you took the time out of your day to sit with me and to share your story, because your story may help someone else.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to share my story.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to give a 2 thumbs up
All right.
for Revolutionary Clinics.
There you go.
Bye. And we're back.
Welcome again.
Welcome again. So, Todd Hodges,
Yes,
Welcome, and
Welcome.
thank you.
thank you.
for coming. So Todd Hodges, he has this amazing persona. I met you for the first time at NECAN, and you came up to me and I was like, oh, Puffin Stuff, Dr. Puffin Stuff. And we just had a great conversation, and I did an interview with you. And I really learned a lot about you, but I want everyone to know about Todd Hodges and the persona of Dr. Puffin Stuff.
Okay.
So you're not a medical doctor.
I am not a doctor
So
by
tell
any
us,
sense
where
of the
did this
means.
come from?
Dr. Puffin Stuff is more of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I've been in the cannabis for 47 years. I know so much about growing it, raising its derivatives. I make a lot of FICO. And my son-in-law one day said, you should call yourself Dr. Puff and stuff. You should wear a lab coat. So I put together a logo, and we were a little bit afraid. We didn't want them to have them come in and say, you know, you have this logo, you're trying to attract children. But the logo itself is what really helps me with a lot of children. They love it. I take them dragon toys when I deliver their tinctures, and the dragon is something they love, and they call me Dr. Puff.
Call you Dr. Puff.
They call me Dr.
Because
Puff.
you're the caregiver. So you're a caregiver to a lot of patients in the
Yes.
community. You've actually made oil that
Thousands
you know,
of grams a month.
Yeah, and you've gifted oil to some of our patients,
Thousands of grams a month.
which
Yeah.
has been
That's
wonderful.
been- yeah.
No, not to your patients, but other patients.
To other patients.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just starting to work with us, and we just really appreciate it because it's making a difference.
I think so. I'm hearing some wonderful report back on
So
what's
let's
happening.
talk about what this is.
That is full extract cannabis oil. And you can make FICO out of trim, you can make it out of leaves and stems, but it's just like everything else in life. It's garbage in, garbage out. So you got to use good bud. Bud, I mean good bud. Smokable quality bud. And that's what we use. We take the bud, we grind it up. Oh, excuse me. First, we put it in the oven at 250 degrees to decarboxylate it for an hour. In this manner.
So people don't know what decarboxylation is you're taking the raw plant and you're converting the acid form, removing the acid form to activate the cannabinoids. You're converting it to THC.
If you were to not decarboxylate, you would not have good FICO. You have to decarboxylate. An hour at 250 degrees F in the oven, then we pull it out. At that point in time, we put it into machines, which will take that cannabis still in its bud form, and we put Everclear in. Never use isopropyl alcohol. I've had calls asking, hey, can I use isopropyl alcohol? No, do not use that. Food grade alcohol only. You put that in a machine, it grinds up all the cannabis, it heats it, it runs for 4 hours. At the end of that time frame, you strain out all of the stuff, ground up cannabis, and all of the medicine has drifted over into the Everclear alcohol. And then you take that alcohol and you put it inside of another machine, and you keep heating that up and heating it up, and it takes a real long time. And the alcohol evolves off, and you can reclaim the alcohol, which is good because you're using a lot. But as soon as that alcohol's gone, this is what you got.
Right. So just a question. So we were talking. So this is 10 grams.
Right. These are
of
10-gram
FICO.
syringes.
How many ounces of bud would make 10 grams?
1 pound makes roughly 90 grams.
1 pound of bud makes 90 grams of FICO. Okay.
So tell us.
Sometimes less.
Right.
But the stuff that I usually yields between 80 and 90 grams.
Right.
So you treat a lot of patients.
A lot.
A lot of patients with cancer.
Cancer, yes.
And tell us, you must have somebody that stands out that you're really proud of the work that you're doing and
Yes, it
contribution
was
that
the
you've
woman
made.
that first got me into it. When my mentor taught me how to make FICO, through a friend, this woman learned that I was making it, and she had just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So she come to me and she said, Todd, I hear you make FICO. I just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Would you make FICO for me? And I said, yeah. I said, but you know, the way you got to take it, I don't know if you're going to really like it. You've got to use it as a suppository. She says, oh no, I can't do that. And she went away, and about 2 weeks later, she called me back up, and she says, yeah, she says, I think I'll do this. Now, I didn't call myself Dr. Puff and stuff. I wasn't trying to help many people. This was the first woman I really helped outside of my own condition. She had a tumor in her pancreas about the size of a lemon. In about 8 months, it went down to the size of a golf ball. And she was taking all the medications the doctors were giving with her all at this time, and they were kind of moving along and scheduling her towards chemo. She went in about 13 months. She had that thing down to the size of a pea.
Wow.
And they were flabbergasted, and they asked her what she had been doing in her life to bring about this miracle. And she told them she'd been taking FICO rectally for over the last year, and they got mad at her and told her if she was going to continue to seek these alternates to their care, they wouldn't give her any more pills. That might interfere with it, and they wouldn't give her FICO. And she says, I don't think I need your pills or your FICO. The woman's name is Barbara. She works at a downtown Boston law firm. She cannot afford to be stoned. When you use FICO in this manner, you avoid the liver. You bypass it. There are no psychoactive effects whatsoever. But all of the healing aspects are still realized. She takes FICO today.
suppository will not get you
Not at all.
that
Not
high
getting high.
feeling.
You bypass the liver, and there are no psychoactive effects whatsoever.
So does somebody take this at night or in the morning?
She
How would
takes
they
it morning
take
and
that?
night.
So twice a day.
She takes 1 gram in the morning and 1 gram at night.
Wow.
And she still does it to keep herself in remission.
So she's in remission.
Total remission.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, the prognosis is very grim.
You
So
can't
that's
live
one
without
of-
pancreas.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, we had a patient that graduated from hospice. She had pancreatic cancer, and she
Oh,
was doing
right, yeah.
she was doing a little bit of just a ton. This is the part that was interesting. She wasn't even doing a lot. She was doing like a rice grain of FICO at bedtime, with the CBD oil and THCA and a couple gummies, just to increase her quality of life. And who knew her cancer would go away in remission?
In the future, the supplements that we're going to be able to take that are going to address our endocannabinoid system are going to absolutely wipe out pancreatic cancer.
Yeah,
Wipe it out.
yeah.
So for somebody that has cancer and they want to treat it with this, what would the cost of treatment be? I know you gift a lot of this, so you're very, very generous, and you do it for the love of patients.
Okay.
But how much would it normally cost for somebody that could afford it?
Well, I know the
The
dispensary.
dispensary charge is $950 for this much FICO. From the doctor, it's $350 at the most.
So it's much, much, much more affordable.
A third of the price almost.
Wow.
Yeah. So a third of that's pretty incredible.
And I would challenge that my FICO is equally as good, if not better, because of the quality of bud that I use to begin with.
Yeah.
And folks, this isn't something that I make much money on. I don't own a home. I live very Spartanly. But my reward in life is seeing these children, or seeing Barbara come every month and get her FICO and know that she's alive and doing well. And my good friend in Utah that gave me my first cigarette, who was dying of COPD, and I provide his FICO to him at no charge. He has nothing in life. A few days ago, he sent me a picture of 24 quarts of beans. He'd been out in his garden. And he told me he walked up to the post office. He said he hadn't done that for 4 years.
Wow.
And he has COPD so bad that he was on oxygen. He told me I don't even really have to have the oxygen that much anymore. His nieces are my friends on Facebook. They're constantly saying, they call me Uncle Puff. And they told me point blank that they thought Brooks would be dead by now and that I'm bringing him back. Now, my mentor, we'll call him Cookie.
Cookie Monster.
Cookie Pop.
Cookie Puff.
Cookie got into making FICO. He was poking around on the internet. He wanted to find out how to make it for himself. So he got working with this guy, and the guy told him how to make it, and then he put his name on the internet at this particular place as a provider. And Cookie went, hey, I'm not a provider. And he goes, you know how to make it? I saw it. You want me to take your name off? Cookie has provided hundreds of COPD patients FICO.
Yeah. So and one of
Hundreds.
we're gonna have a show on. We should just have a whole show on FICO with you and your mentor, and really talk about the full extract cannabis oil and how it works for so many different conditions, because it does. It's really, really good medicine. You don't need a lot of it, and I think it does warrant it.
And there are no side effects but a good night's sleep.
Right. We'll talk about that. But we're coming to the end of the show. Gosh, it went by so fast. Todd,
Yes, Sharon.
you know we're going to have you on again.
All right, I will
Okay,
come.
absolutely.
I would like to bring my mentor and talk. Also have some of these people that this has changed their life.
Absolutely.
I
That
can
would
talk
be
until I'm blue in the
fantastic.
face, but when you hear it out of people's face, like these folks that come in tonight and told their story, these stories are going to bring other people. We're going to change the world.
Hope. People need hope.
We're going to make
Yeah.
history. We're going to do
And-
things that are unprecedented.
Yep. And living your best life with chronic illness. That's exactly what
Yeah.
it is. We don't have to be living in a disease state. We
No.
can live a good life
With disease.
with disease and feel good.
And feel good.
All right. So that's
It's
what our
about
mission
quality
is.
of life.
Our mission is to decrease suffering and improve quality of life. So
Absolutely.
we're going to wrap up the show by talking about next week's show really quickly. So next week on 8/29, we're going to be saluting our veterans again. Next Thursday, I'm actually taking my daughter to college. She's going to UMaine and she's going into the Navy ROTC. So I'm really, really excited to have these two veterans on. Ellen Brown is going to be one of our veterans. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran. She's founder of oh my God, I can't say it.
Sinsemilla.
Say it.
Sinsemilla.
Sinsemilla
Seminars.
Seminars.
Centennial.
We're
Oh,
sorry.
I'm so sorry.
There you go. Thank you.
Oh, man.
So say it again so we can.
Centennial.
You can
Oh,
come to our rescue here.
so Ellen, I am so grateful you're going to be on the show
And we're
next
sorry.
week. We're sorry. She's a cannabis consultant and she travels across the country. So she'll be on our show next week. We also have Axel Valentin, U.S. Marine Corps. He talks about post-traumatic stress, depression, suicide, and he is just an amazing man too. He has some amazing ideas about what veterans need, and he's thinking of creating a veterans oasis, which he's going to share next week on the show as well. So
thank you for
thank
joining
you for
us
joining
tonight.
us tonight. I want to thank once again Bruce, Angela, and Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsors. And join us next week live from 8 to 9 p.m. This is Dale and Sherry with the Green Nurse Show.
Oh,
Bye, y'all.
Lucy.
Oh, and Lucy.